What is this? Like, this is what Israel defenders are saying now? Limit the First Amendment to defend it? Oh my God. No shot.
Time to limit the First Amendment in order to protect it. And quickly before it's too late.
What do you mean?
I mean that we need to control the platforms, all the social platforms.
And who the f do you think you are, Shlomo? Providing your 2 cents on our Constitution.
Are you kidding me, dude? I need to see the OG video. They're complaining about this whole Shlomo Kramer's clip is overtaking social media, is also going viral. Why are they so bad at timing? It is the audacity. It is the entitlement, the sheer arrogance. In many respects, it's because they're fascist. This is how it works. It's a fascist, it's a fascist, hyper arrogant way of communicating. When you're like, what do you mean? Of course, I'm the GOAT. I'm the best thing. I'm the fucking man. Of course, you need to sit the down and listen to what I have to say. Of course, you're going to actually silence and suppress speech criticizing my country. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. But for many people, I think, because of Holocaust education, because of the Nazis primarily targeting Jews, many people in the United States of America cannot comprehend that, like, someone can be Jewish and a fascist as well. Someone can be a Jewish fascist, as a matter of fact, like a Jewish supremacist fascist as well. This does not mean that all Jews are like this, of course, just as every white person is not a card-carrying white supremacist Klans member. We have to understand anyone and everyone can be a fascist, and Zionism is an ethno-religious supremacist ideology. It is fascist, and that is precisely the reason why people can speak like this, and it shocks people's consciousness. Like, think about it. Look, every time someone here, I'll give it to you in terms that you can understand. If there were a bunch of, and there are some of these, the example I'm going to present to you kind of has already started. If instead of, Shlomo Kramer, you had Hank Patterson going on NBC as a high-profile Christian nationalist of a white background and saying, the anti-white sentiment needs to stop right now. The anti-Christian sentiment needs to stop right now. We are going to tackle the First Amendment to ensure that we preserve the First Amendment because we must preserve a future, a secure future for our white children. You'd understand it a little bit better, right? Hank Patterson running around talking about how white people are under attack. We must actually end or eradicate or significantly claw back First Amendment protections. We must punish people for speaking out against the whites. You would obviously recognize that as supremacist talking points. But because of our understanding, because of the history of Jews being persecuted throughout time, right, all the way into the Holocaust, we look at Jewish people as a marginalized people in the United States of America, and because historically they were, right? And we don't understand that someone who is a Zionist and is defending the interests of Israel is actually not speaking from a position of marginalization at all. As a matter of fact, they're simply utilizing the collective understanding of marginalization of Jews in an effort to defend their ethno-nationalist fascist project. Whenever someone who is Israeli, who is not an avowed anti-Zionist, is talking about anti-Semitism in this way, they're most likely referring to anti-Israel sentiment. And we've seen that from the way I receive criticisms from people who are pro-Israel, who make it seem as though I'm actually, a nefarious anti-Semite doing anti-Semitic propaganda at a time when, if I was anti-Semitic, it would be beneficial for me to say so, okay? It would be beneficial for my career to say that I don't like Jewish people, because unfortunately, what a lot of people still don't realize is that anti-Semitism is exploding. A lot of people who say that anti-Semitism is out of control don't actually realize how out of control it actually is. It's like when people accuse me of being secretly transphobic. It's like, brother, do you know how much more motion I would have if I was outwardly transphobic? It's unironically one of the major issues with so many people who otherwise have like progressive values or otherwise are like on board with something. And then they hear me defend trans people one time and go, oh, this guy's out of his mind. I'm uncompromising in my positions, whether it be combating anti-Semitism, combating bigotry of all different forms. And I will never compromise on those positions because I care about the humanity of people, and that is just my worldview. My worldview stems from defending those who are unjustly maligned and persecuted for a distractive purpose for capital owners who want to dominate and continue to dominate the world, dominate the United States of America by consistently stealing shit from you, stealing money out of your pockets, and then redirecting your attention over to, Somalis, or redirecting your attention over to the handful of trans people that exist.
Also one of the founders of Checkpoint, another big cyber company. Shlomo, it's great to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
How is AI, cyber warfare, shaping geopolitics right now?
So AI is going to revolutionize cyber warfare, is revolutionizing cyber warfare from critical infrastructure to the fabric of society and politics, and undermining it, giving unfair advantage to authoritarian governments against democratic countries. First Amendment type of...
That's already happening?
That's already happening. You're seeing the polarization in countries that allow for the First Amendment and protect it, which is great. And I know it's difficult to hear, but it's time to limit the First Amendment.
Yeah, this is poison, brother. I mean, I'm serious. You say this with any accent, people are going to freak out. You say this with, like I said, if it was Hank Patterson saying this to preserve the white ethnics, to preserve the safety and security of white ethnics, Americans would despise this still. But when you say this with an Israeli accent, it literally makes people's ears perk up. They go, what? I'm sorry, what? This is like opening up a copy of I don't know, some kind of like David Duke pamphlet and being like, I am going to lean into this so aggressively. It's ridiculous. Like every day I try to explain to people that this is not, the exploding anti-Semitic, the anti-Semitic theories about like how, Jewish control takes place. Jewish control is happening in America, and they control the country, they control the world, they control global finance. Every day I have to fucking fight back against this stuff because it's not true, because it takes away from the actual villains. It takes away from how society actually operates, which is not at the behest of the international Jewry or whatever, but international capital. But then guys like this come in and just like say shit like this, and it makes the job impossible.
In order to protect...
Yes, I did have this conversation yesterday. I'm just replaying it again because it's going super viral. Obviously, it's doing blockbuster numbers on Twitter.
And quickly before it's too late.
What do you mean?
I mean that we need to control the platforms, all the social platforms. We need to stack rank the authenticity of every person that expresses themselves online, and take control over what they are saying based on that ranking.
Like this is this negative Hasbara? Brother, everything that like pro-Israel people say is basically working against Israel's interests overall. It comes from a place of feeling like you are superior, because ultimately that's how fascism works, okay? That's how it works. Oh, we got to control people's voices. We have to target and tackle anti-Semites. First of all, there is an argument you could make, as wokes made for a very long time, about how in order to preserve the First Amendment, in order to have reasonable discourse, you have to have some safeguards. And we already have some safeguards that we all understand are harmful, right? Safeguards around speech that we've determined is harmful. That's the reason why you can't procure CSAM, for example, child sexual abuse material, unless you're Elon Musk's AI Grok. But most people understand that that is not protected by the First Amendment, and that's a good thing that it's not protected by the First Amendment. That's not free expression. But when you come in hot and talk about this, specifically around like anti-Semitism, and when people understand when you're saying anti-Semitism, you're actually talking about anti-Israel sentiment. Yeah, of course people are going to be like, what the f are you saying?
The government should control the social media.
Yeah, should do that. And we need to educate people against lies, and government need to develop cyber defense programs that are as sophisticated as the cyber attack. Today it's a 1 to 100 ratio. And really, government are not doing this today at any rate, and enterprises are left.
I never got your point that if I was a bigot, I'd go full blast. It does speak to a popular environment, but not everyone operates that way, as some are a little bigoted, but not a binary. Yeah, I just mean that like being bigoted against vulnerable populations and marginalized populations is actually beneficial right now. It's truly beneficial. It is a much easier way to present your argument. Bigotry is an oversimplified argument. It's always an oversimplified argument. And especially in a country like the United States of America, it's an oversimplified argument that just works a lot better when you're trying to drive home a point. That's the reason why when you actually try to describe to people like the case of fraud taking place in Minneapolis, to go blah, 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 boring. Talk to me about how you want to kill these how you want to kill these third worlders, right? These parasitic third worlders coming from Somalia. Like, that's what they want to hear. That's all they want. They don't want to hear an argument broken down and explained step by step. They don't want to hear that, underserved communities that have been historically marginalized and destroyed, that have no way out, are going to, of course, lead to a higher instance of crime or criminal activity. They want to hear you say black people are aggressive because it's their culture, or black people are aggressive and violent because they are inferior. And even if they don't say inferior race, they mean inferior race. But if they can't say inferior race, they'll say inferior culture, right? That's an infinitely easier argument to present. That's it. And the same goes for Israel. Describing Israel as a vassal state that has played a formative role in America's colonial ambition in a resource-rich region is convoluted. It's difficult. It also shifts a big chunk of the blame back to America. And a lot of people don't actually want to hear that. A lot of Americans don't want to hear that. They want you to say it's the Jews. It's Jewish control, especially because when you say it's Jewish control, it takes away the responsibility from America and Americans, American politicians in general. So it's a very comforting, self-soothing narrative. A lot of people don't understand that fascism, fascist ideology, racism, ethno-supremacist or racially supremacist values are actually mechanisms of self-soothing. It makes you feel a sense of comfort that maybe you're not at fault, that it's not the actual systemic analysis that must take place requires rigorous reading. Okay, requires to develop a totally different way of understanding the world that you have never encountered in a country like the United States of America, because materialist thought, dialectical materialism, historical materialism is not only not taught in schools, even as an alternative, but instead it is actually routinely propagandized against. So most Americans, when they encounter socialism or communism or any sort of Marxist thinking, they have already been negatively primed against it. So in the absence of that, of course, it's a much easier narrative to create a grand conspiracy. You're not at fault, it's the feminists. You're not at fault, it's the wokes. You're not at fault, it's the Jews. And that's how it works. And in a media environment such as this one, it becomes increasingly more difficult to educate people on this stuff because it's much easier. In the short attention span economy, it's much easier to get a piffy dunk and just slam it, Be like, this guy's in the pocket of Jews, moving on, right? Like, this is fucking crazy. Like, this is unironically what people are seeing, what they're experiencing, what they're frustrated by. And it gives a perfect opportunity for people like Nick Fuentes to immediately package this back to like Jews control the media. The connective tissue there, however, is not just Nick Fuentes saying all Jews care about Israel. It's Jewish people who also love Israel consistently putting that at the forefront of their argumentation, being like, if you criticize Israel, oh, sweetie, you're being quite anti-Semitic actually for criticizing Israel. The do you expect people to learn from that? You know what I mean? Why do you think he's popping off now? Why do you think this neo-Nazi that was deplatformed from every platform is now a major figure in American politics? How do you think that happened? Because people hate Israel. And he is seen as an earnest criticizer of Israel.
And the same tools can be used also by government.
But the two leaders in AI, one is China, which obviously already is using AI to control the population. Yeah. And here we're all out in a race with China. And so we're not as interested in regulation right now, certainly not at the state level, for example.
And that's a big mistake, because if China has a single narrative that protects its inner stability and the U.S. has allows for multiple
Open Presidents, thank you for the 100 gifted subs. Let's
narratives,
go.
it puts them in an unfair advantage.
He's doing such a good impression of Hasan doing an Israeli accent.
That long term is going to cost the stability of the nation. So changes must be made.
Anyway, yeah, that was as horrifying as I thought it was, for the record. Like, that is crazy. It seems he just wants a China-like censorship on the media. Yeah, it's so dumb. We are looking at all the worst aspects of Chinese governance and like Chinese repression and being like, let's not do any of the good stuff. Let's only do the stuff that people really fucking hate. It's so dumb. It doesn't work without the other, especially in the Western world. It will never work. You want to know why? Because those liberties are the only redeeming qualities of living in a fucking liberal capitalist Western country. Are you fucking joking? It's like saying we're going to shut off the treat machine and we're going to shut off your free speech openly, so you can't even feel like you have an opportunity to buy, like, I don't know, a diverse array of products that is relatively affordable, or even speak your mind, call Trump a pedophile when you feel like it. The only reason why that kind of social restriction works in a place like China is because they also really base boost the material conditions. You can't have one without the other. Now, I'm not even going to make an argument about whether or not America has achieved true liberty in terms of free expression and things like that. Obviously that's not the case, but I'm talking about like the feeling of having true liberty in self-expression, right? Because we believe it. We have it. We believe that we have it.